Welcome back to the LEC Studio. Xayah get to end week 2 on a good note as they take down SK Gaming today. And Markoon, thank you so much for joining me for this interview. It was a difficult game in the end. You managed to grab a good lead in the early game, but I mean, there's something with Xayah and having difficulties in the later stages of the game, especially the late game 30-minute mark, I would say. What was maybe in general for you guys so far?
I mean, I think it's quite clear to us what we are doing wrong, and I think it's been the same most games where I think we play the early games fairly cleanly, and we managed to get leads and early objectives, and I think we just stumble in mid-game team fights around Drakes and around Nashes. I think we don't coordinate well as a team, and I think it really shows in the fact that we just lose most fights.
What is difficult in mid-game? Because usually, I mean, some teams manage to grab a lead, but it is, as you said, in the mid-game that things get difficult. What does it come down to? Communication, finding what to do on the map? How do you explain this?
I mean, I think it comes down to coordination.
Okay.
I don't think our map movements in the mid-game are too bad. I think that there's room for improvement, for sure, but I think it really just comes down to how we play the fights and how we start the fights, what targets we prioritize, this kind of stuff that we are just like fundamentally misplaying on, which causes us to lose most fights.
Well, good thing is you know what to do, so now you just need to fix it, if that makes sense. But to come back to this game especially, SK was coming back in the latest fight and they had some good pokes, some good late game options as well. Did you think they could come back and close out the game?
I mean, to be honest, after we lost like 3 fights, I got a bit scared. There was like a voice in the back of the head that said like, wait, is it gonna happen again? Are we gonna like screw up another early game lead? But I mean, eventually, yeah, Patrick got that pick on the animating on the Ziggs, I think, and Jinzao, and then yeah, we just tried to end as soon as possible, get out of the game.
Saved, relieved. Now, a bit more about you, Markoon. You arrived in the LEC last year in a difficult setting. I want to say Xayah wasn't doing that well. You managed to help and save the team in the end of the season, if I may say. But you got to start the season on a new setting and on the right foot, if I may say, beginning the new season with the whole team. How do you reflect on your progress in the LEC so far? Because you got player of the game here, and I feel like you had an amazing start of the season, individually at least.
For me personally, last split, I still had a lot of issues that I needed to fix, but since I started so late in the season, it was harder for me to fix them. But I think now, starting like 1 month already with bootcamps and stuff, and having Nelson behind me as well, I think he's a great coach. I am learning a lot, and I think I'm fixing most of my issues right now. And I think it's also a lot easier when you're not thrown into LEC, like mid-split, where you're like meant to like save Xayah or get Xayah to playoffs. Like you're starting from the start, you have time to improve, and I think it's a lot easier to just work that way.
Best environment to shine that year. Or for now, Markoon, thank you so much for the interview. Congrats on taking down SK Gaming today, and we'll see you next week for week 3.
Thank you.
But we have way more to say about this game, so back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you so much, Laure. And thank you very much, Markoon. Fantastic interview, extremely honest responses. And you could feel the relief and the sensation after that game. Now, we don't have a huge amount of time to break this down, so as we pull up the team compositions, I immediately want to say what I said to my analyst backstage. I was like, is Xayah keeping it simple, stupid? And I think this comp was pretty easy to understand. They wanted to engage. Their opponents, SK, had the ability to poke, had the ability to play side lanes. And I don't want to dive too much into it because the replays and the way it ended are a lot more dramatic. Vedius, as I come to you and we look at the first replays where Markoon and Finn started to generate the lead for Xayah, was this going to plan?
Well, so I think that Xayah generally with this comp actually shouldn't have the stronger early game. Your expectations with a composition like this are that you'll typically fall behind, you'll wait to scale, you'll wait to team fight, but I think that we've seen a core part of what makes Xayah so good, and it is ADVN and Markoon being able to find these successful picks. Now when we come to this level 6 mark and you actually have a lot more utility and setup in your team fights, that's really where this Xayah composition comes to fruition. And getting a 4v4 team fight this early on into the game, I feel like that it's SK just getting kind of caught with their pants down and Xayah immediately taking advantage of it. And again, a lot of credit needs to go to ADVN and Markoon. Their ability to find these engage, along with Finn setting up with the Malphite as well, as we consistently saw. That kick, by the way, beautiful from Markoon as well. The 3-man knock-up into the kill as well, just very well executed. I think that Xayah demonstrated that with this jungle support duo, this team can be very proactive in the early game, and they can set themselves up for success even when their composition doesn't necessarily allow it.
I mean, this might come also as a surprise, right? But through the ERLs an entire year, Markoon and Advian were like inseparable. That was the bromance that brought a lot of success to the BTXL roster and now XL. And I feel like we talked a little bit about how when the map is a little bit split and Markoon is playing towards the top side of the map and Advian has to stick on an enchanter down bot lane, you see that XL is sort of struggling in the early. Now that Advian was able to pretty much isolate himself away from his AD carry and follow Markoon everywhere, I felt like Advian was the shadow of Markoon the entire time.
I mean, fantastic. The early game was impeccable. The lead extends. We get to this fight at the mid lane just before 20 minutes or round about there. Now, spoilers, XL win this fight. Then they're going to pick up Baron. And I'm starting to think this is where XL win the game, right? Because this fight itself goes well.
Trevor. Did you watch at all the telestrator segment I did on the pre-game?
Because what were you thinking when you see this fight? Because it did look relatively clean, or at least in XL's favor, rather.
This one actually goes to XL's favor right here, and it's the first time that we actually saw them acting as a team, actively looking for that Malphite ultimate and how they can change their CC to take their opponents away. But there are a couple of mishaps later on, especially when we go towards the Dragon area and the Baron again, and we see those glimpses of indecision coming from the side of XL.
Should XL have won the game from that Baron?
Yeah.
From that gold lead, from the advantage they had?
Yeah, they should have.
Why did they not?
All right, let's talk about it then, I guess. All right. Well,
Tell me, Vedi.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go to my little touchy screen thing over here, and I'm gonna show you one of XL's fights because I was a little disappointed. The fight that you just saw on your screen before was a really great example of how they should be utilizing their composition. They have a hard engage comp, and against poke comps in particular, what you want to do is ideally not give them an opportunity to leverage their poke. So let's bring up this telestrator and talk about how XL weren't quite able to do that around this Baron. So they decide that they're just going to force this Baron. The key thing to note is that right now their waves aren't in a terrible spot. This top wave, I think, is slowly starting to push. This bot wave is also in their favor. The problem is that they don't actually get control over the mid wave. And this is probably one of the most important things that anyone ever needs to know when it comes to Baron, is that you want to make sure that this wave is pushed in first so that you can use this pushed wave to give you easy access into the river, because you'll notice that this TP is also going to come down onto this mid wave. SK is going to have access into this part, and from over here as well, and like they're not interrupted whatsoever. So there's no real need for them to face check into this hard engage comp from XL because they've hard committed onto the Baron. So as they start the playoff, you'll notice here that Nukeduck is kind of like sitting in the river trying to zone opposition, but notice how easy it is at this point for SK. Look at them. They literally just walk in and they don't care. They've created this pincer composition setup onto XL, who's now all funneled into this pit, and you can see now how much harder it is for XL to find a successful engage. So as we continue to roll things out, you'll notice that a lot of poke damage comes. I just really want to highlight, like, Nukeduck has flash and ultimate up, and he sees treats on a control ward, and then he gets hit by a hook, which is just, it's not okay. This is not okay when you're playing the Sandra and your purpose is to provide as much utility and stall in this situation. So he ends up getting chunked out. Jesu's in a perfect position to keep throwing all this poke inside the pit. Oh, I meant to use the arrow function here. I wanted to throw it all the way into the pit. You can see Janak's able to throw all this poke out of here. Certus is also very safe. Meanwhile, Patrick and Markoon, they decide, look, we're just going to flip it. We're just going to focus on trying to finish this while the rest of our team tries to stall. And admittedly, Finn and Advian do a good job. The Baron ends up getting secured, but this is another example of when it comes to XL's team fighting that we've been trying to highlight and focus has been a key issue for XL. The whole setup around these objectives, the whole plan, the execution, everything is just not coming together, and it's something that XL really need to fix if they finally want to qualify for playoffs. Now, Astralis is still looking for their first win, and tonight they have another mountain to climb in the form of the reigning LEC champions.
Thank you very much, Vedi. Great breakdown of XL's late game woes. What's the giggle, huh?
Oh, nothing.
What are you giggling about?
I'm not giggling about anything. Continue.
Is it because you called him Medi earlier on? Is that why you're laughing?
You have no proof of that.
Oh, that's true. They probably actually record us. Did you know that with the microphones? You have to be careful what you say because they can use it later on in like their rollout. I've had some things I didn't realize were being recorded on the rollout, especially dancing with Vedi. We do that a lot. Anyway, we're here for MAD versus Astralis. It's game 2 of the day. Astralis currently struggling at 0-4. MAD sitting at 2-2. Let's see who can bring home the win.
Denmark.
Let's get on into the draft. Mad on the blue side so far. I've had a couple of really strong victories against G2 and Vitality. Obviously struggled against SK last week, and yesterday against Rogue were put in the dumpster in the early game and lost very rapidly. Now Akali banned away, there's Diana taken away from Elyoya.
It's interesting as well because MAD Lions did this themselves yesterday with the Akali ban, and being on blue side, you know, with players like Armut and Reeker, especially Reeker, I would think that they would be one of the teams who would really love to get these champions on their hand. Once again, we saw they had first pick priority on the Thresh yesterday. This time around, they're the team to ban it away. Granted, promisq has shown a lot of priority on Thresh himself, but not really something to write home about. Over the side of Astralis, getting rid of some of the normal ones, Twisted Fate to come through as well. And Corki just seems to be the trend as well, so just get rid of that. So AD carries, if you want to secure that. Junglers is usually what we see here. Zanzarah, Lee Sin for Elyoya as well. Lots of priorities available for MAD Lions in this instance.
Yeah, Jinx obviously jumped to mind, but just trading that with Kobbe, depending on which one you go for instead. It looks like it might be Viktor first pick here for MAD Lions.
To be fair, Reeker did have a horrible time against Larsen's Viktor yesterday. Was apparently a player on his own rise, so being able to take some safer control in that maybe give you what you were lacking yesterday in terms of a mid laner. So you will have that priority, you will have the lasers to create space around objectives, and it will give you a little bit more priority. Over on the side of Astralis, I think the biggest weak point I've seen of Astralis is them struggling to have one specific lane or carry to play for in the laning phase. They often are very good at holding on for the games, letting them stall out very late. But now with this Xayah and Rakan down for the bot lane, something we've already seen once today, or yesterday rather, maybe a chance for them to play down towards the bot lane. Maybe a chance for them to make Kobbe the catalyst for their first victory in the spring season.
Yeah, and it's strange to see such high Xayah priority. Like, Rakan is a relatively good support generally, but the Xayah really has only come out from Patrick and Kobbe and promisq, the Xayah-Rakan combination. So with Jinx and Jhin available, I'm a little surprised to see it this high up in priority.
The thing is, it's actually a pick that you usually go into the Jinx, because Jinx goes lethal tempo, she gets an incredible range, you can't outduel her in the extended trades. So what you do on the Xayah instead is that you take Ahri, you go lethality, and you poke her out with the Q&E and just never trade with her with the auto attacks. So therefore, we often see Xayah actually be able to take laning control over the Jinx, being the one dictating the waves. Now, the Lee Sin does get picked up for Elyoya here in this instant. Trundle is still up and available for Zanzarah as well. We saw that being target banned out against him just yesterday. But Dajor, before going into the second ban phase, wants to get his hands on the Vex. It was one of the champions he played in his first game of the LEC, and he did solo kill Vedius.
That's very true. He did solo kill VTO in that game, but for the moment, he is playing into a Viktor in the mid lane. Into the second ban phase we go. Jungle and top lane still available for Astralis. Surprised to see that they haven't decided to prioritize jungle, but it is Zanzarah. So Trundle, Skarner still both available. His whole champion pool is still up for him to choose from. Gwen banned away from MAD Lions, something we have seen Armut on a couple of times so far.
Something that would also be easy to facilitate with in this instance, and especially with the Thresh taken away from the table, would be the Jarvan. Right now, you already know that the side of the Jinx, she wants to be able to just have a free time in the back line. But if you can disrupt that, with the dive in coming through with the Vex, having the feathers from Xayah as well as long range for the follow-up from Rakan, you know the deal. Be something that would be incredibly good for Astralis to build that composition around.
It could definitely work for them. At the moment, MAD Lions just going to ban out the Xin. I do wonder, I just look at this Astralis comp, and I think about what Kaiser can bring to the fore. And there's a certain support that I think would be very powerful into this Astralis composition.
Tell me about it, Medic.
Poppy.
It's genuinely not a bad shout, and it's also a champion that we've already seen Zanzarah play in the jungle.
Yeah.
Him looking for it here in fourth may not be a bad shout. This may actually just itself be the next ban to come through.
It might be, but I'm also wondering, like, if Kaiser could take it on the side of MAD Lions. You know, you deny the Vex engage, you deny Rakan getting in the middle of your team. It can work, and I think we saw Kaiser play it last year. We'll see where Astralis decide to go with the Malphite and the Xin banned away. Jungle pool a little bit pinched conventionally, but of course Zanzarah is Zanzarah. and has a bunch of different options overall. Expectations are this will be jungle and then you save top lane pick for last, but it could be that WhiteKnight just wants something like the Gragas top, something safe, or the Ornn top, just get a tank, and then you can leave your jungler for last.
So at least we have a thematic coming into this one, right? You can already see Astralis, bot lane is for sure the lane we want to play for. WhiteKnight, he's just been left as a facilitator on the Ornn, the front line. But over on the other side, yeah, once again on MAD Lions, you never took out the Lulu. You never took out any of these enchanters because you wanted to have a safe laning phase for WhiteKnight once he blind picked this Ornn. But this does make a very easy situation for Unforgiven on this Jinx. If they're able to take control of this bot side of the map, if they're able to properly 3v3, they'll have it. And Aatrox, I think the first one we're seeing here in Spring, at least in the LEC, if I'm not mistaken. One of these bruises that can be incredibly annoying to deal with. If you don't have the CT to lock him down, granted, there is a decent bit on the side of Astralis to knock down as well from Vex. Will be crucial.
It does give you a very strong top jungle 2v2 though if we ever see Reeker going up there. And instead of the Lulu, it's going to be the Zilean for Kaiser. Something we saw Hylissang bring out actually into Kobbe on the Xayah yesterday. It worked out incredibly well for Fnatic there, and I'm sure Kaiser is trying to replicate that success.
But honestly speaking, Astralis has a super easy composition to pilot now. You take a look at this composition, you know exactly what it wants to do. Start with the Ornn, connect Dajor's ultimate, come in with the Jarvan, and have the follow-up from promisq, damage from Kobbe in the background. Granted, this is requirements now for your composition that you do get your bot lane ahead, that your mid laner is following up. Yep. Because if you're not, you're going to be dealing with Viktor having priority, him being on the objective first, him making sure that you're not allowed to get access into the fight without trading a lot of your HP for it. And then even if you do, there's a Zilean in the backline. So punishing a Zilean will be crucial. We'll get into that in laning phase later as well. But right now, both composition very much is something to play for. MAD Lions a little bit harder to execute, but I'm fairly sure they have the talent to execute on it.
They definitely do. We've had a couple of really good games so far in Spring. A couple of pretty bad losses as well. The SK1 springs to mind. Just a few mechanical mistakes right at the end. Astralis, though, still looking for their first win in the LEC Spring Split 2020. 0-4 so far. Haven't had the easiest competition, but we'll see if they can take down MAD Lions today. On to the Rift re-jump. We didn't really talk about this Jarvan last pick from Astralis, but it does just suit their composition, gives you some backline threat, the EQ combo, and of course allows you some pretty early ganks as well. Jarvan's in, both of these junglers that can do a lot of work in the early game.
It's one of the few junglers into Jinx that can actually be a bit finicky. In theory, you go like, alright, Jinx, immobile AD carry, I should be able to just flack and drag her down. But the thing is, if you're able to get the chompers out in time, you actually cancel the dash and he can stay safe. So despite having no mobility, you do have a little bit of CC in your kit to take care of it. Now, they don't have a sweeper to take care of this ward, so they can't share the, the XP on it.
Yeah. Won't be able to take it down. Sweeper is on Kaiser, but he's down towards that bottom lane. There was a ward placed on the red as well, I think by promisq, before he backed and came back with the Oracle. So MAD Lions did see that ward go down. It looks like both junglers going to start on the top side of the map, perhaps work their way down towards the bottom side, but of course we have seen single side clear into gank that side of the map as well. promisq and Kobbe, the level 1 from Rakan Xayah can be very strong. You gain priority pretty easily. Actually, promisq not leveling up anything so far. Often you see in a Xayah Rakan lane, you'll level up the E first. So you get the shield and you just push forward, harass, harass, harass. You get the W from the Xayah.
This is cheeky.
And you can dodge back. But Zanzarah actually looking for a level 2 gank to the mid lane.
Dajor with the fear. Can he connect to it? Reeker, he's respecting it so far. But it's only a matter of time.
EQ flash immediately from Reeker. Does get level 2 off it, but Viktor, a very low mobility champion in the mid lane, now made even less mobile with the loss of his flash.
That was a very smart pathing by Zanzarah, actually. He went up towards the top side, went into the river instead, because he knew the Raptors was warded. So Reeker, he thought he had the safety by just positioning it up towards the top side of the mid lane. But Zanzarah, in actuality, was just waiting for him. If they had been able to connect with the fear into the knock-up, may have been a kill. That's not the case, and that does give Elyoya a little bit of an advantage. He cleared his entire blue side. Zanzarah's only done it now. he did not clear the Crocs. Or the Grump, he did not clear the Raptors, and here comes Elyoya.
Both smites coming off at the same cooldown. Sonic Wave, wait for it, smite it. Zanzarah missed his. Elyoya does not miss the auto attack. Now Zanzarah getting chased out of his own jungle. Already 2 full camps behind. And although he did get the flash out of the mid lane, Zanzarah is going to have to repeat that gank, repeat that process to make sure they actually get an advantage out of it.
Yeah, this is just disastrous, not only because you got pushed off, you have to reset now. You only get a longsword. Elyoya, take away your wolves now. He can take away his own red side jungle. And then on top of that right now, Zanzarah hasn't cleared his first camps in the top side, which means they're still level 1, which means they're going to be level 2 later than the side of Elyoya's jungle camps. So this little play on the Jarvan right now is something that might come back and bite him the more later we get into this game.
Of course, the higher level your jungle camps are, the more XP you get from them. I believe you get more gold from them as they level up as well. So you want to be clearing your camps on spawn if you can, just to keep that number ticking over, ticking over, ticking over, ticking over, ticking over, and getting all that extra gold and experience. For the moment, though, Zanzarah pushed behind, but he did give Dajor a relatively free lane in the mid lane. He's now got a back off. Looks like it's going to be a normal recall. Won't TP in with this being a cannon wave. And can just run back towards his lane with a Doran's Ring and boots to boot.
But that is exactly the thing as well. What can you get out of Reeker not having any flash? Is there any chance that you can actually punish this? If Kobbe can get any sort of priority down towards the bot side of the map, let promisq roam out, try and pin some movement down in towards this mid lane, it could be huge.
Bomb's coming out, there's the exhaust as well. No stun connects onto Kobbe. Kobbe's going to pull the root back here. Unforgiven, though, continues to step forward. Heal used by Kobbe now. Unforgiven still has one of his own. Ignite ticking on him. He's going to wait for that to time out. Elyoya joins the fray. promisq and Kobbe forced back just a little. 3v2 in the bottom lane now. And where is Zanzarah? Well, he's looking for a long roam around here. Actually going towards the mid lane instead. Doesn't join the fight to the bottom side.
But they're still very low here. I wonder if they can find any route on towards any of the members. And now Zanzarah finally making his way down. They did connect.
There's the knockup. Elyoya does still have flash. They don't know that Zanzarah is here, and flash is abound for the Mad Lions. EQ doesn't even need it. Walks forward. Aegis still lands on Elyoya, who flashes.
He lives!
How the flip did you survive that? Less than 10 HP. Elyoya gets out alive.
Zanzarah, he found a read. He waited for them to dash. Found a knockup, but the damage, it wasn't there. And in the end, it's still a little victory from the side of Astralis. They get to push in the wave, which means Unforgiven loses a lot of XP, he loses a lot of gold, and they will inevitably slow push back towards Astralis bot lane. But man, you can't help but think that should have been the first plot.
Yeah, you really felt like it. It was such a long trade on the bottom side, and credit to promisq and Kobbe for playing it so well. It did look like Elyoya was just trying to help Unforgiven and Kaiser push out the wave, and because of the slow play, Zanzarah was able to make his way down from mid lane towards that bot lane fight. And I do want to talk a little bit more about the bot lanes, because although Unforgiven has got off to a slightly shaky start so far in this game, he's actually had a very good start to his LEC season in his rookie split, doing the most damage share of any bot laner, having a large gold lead at 14 minutes. As Kaiser is actually called out here, will be able to flash and should be able just to walk this one out. Shadow Surge, Dajor goes in, didn't have the doom and gloom, I don't believe. Now has it back up, but didn't really manage to get the fear off there. Elyoya still looking for something. Zanzarah can EQ, but wasn't able to spot him out well enough with the oracles. And looks like both teams will just back away, maybe fight over the Scuttle Crab here as Unforgiven makes his way up to join with Mad Lions.
These are still summoner spells being taken away from the members.
Kaiser has no flash.
Of Mad Lions, and you're right, exactly. Kaiser has no flash.
Flash, knock up, promisq gets the flash out of the Jinx, but now Elyoya on the way. Level 6 has been attained. TP goes up towards the top lane. From the mid lane there from Dajor, sorry, as promisq still trading onto Elyoya, who does have the Dragon's Rage, and the kick comes out and Unforgiven gets first blood. And now he's got excited, as perhaps Reeker is as well, joining the fight. Joining the fray, promisq dances away to safety.
Escape artist after escape artist in this game. There's so much action here in the early game. Both teams are really willing to pull the trigger for any way to get a little lead in this game. And this time around, it's the Mad Lions bot lane that get to push in the mid lane. Or the bot lane rather, sorry. And get their advantage. Make sure that Kobbe is losing out on XP and gold now. This game is really going back and forth in the early game, but Mad Lions, they get the first blood, and they still obtain their own little gold lead.
And net 1,000 ahead, and you can see this. Zanzarah and promisq are just looking for the flash out of Unforgiven. You really know you're not going to get much more out of that fight.
Exactly, but it's the value as well, knowing that the enemy AD carry has no longer has flash and trading that for your own support, especially if you're playing Rakan, you take that. But the double stun from Kaiser here is absolutely phenomenal. If they're able to layer the CC down on Elyoya, that could have very easily been Astralis' first blood.
It's a really good escape from promisq. Of course, enhanced range on the E when you play with a Xayah as Rakan, so you can battle dance your way a lot further than usual. promisq used that to full effect to escape. Importantly, though, in that bottom lane, promisq was the one that got the kill for Astralis, whereas it was Unforgiven on this Jinx who got the kill for Mad Lions. promisq slowed. That is one of the most obnoxious abilities in the game. Kaiser just hits him with the E. He's like, nope, you're not going anywhere.
But once again, we spoke quite recently about the junglers as well and what it would mean for Elyoya that he finally got out on the map earlier, that he had the item advantage. You can see it now with the Irons, by the way. He's actually been able to counter jungle the blue buff away from Zanzarah as well, while he still has his own blue buff to set up. This also influences the mid lane now, because Reeker on the Viktor will be able to pick up the blue buff, while Dajor, he will have nothing to respond to the waves, which will in turn mean that Mad Lions should be able to get this first move from the mid lane all the time, because they're pushing in the waves first with their abilities.
This puts Mad in a very strong position. Armut as well, constantly forcing WhiteKnight underneath his tower, kind of to be expected. Ornn doesn't really do too much into the Aatrox matchup early on, but what it does mean is that Armut is able to go and get the Rift Tail. Blue buff gone, Zanzarah and Dajor will notice, but they did manage to get themselves a Hextech Drake. So Astralis first dragon on the board.
But both teams are playing this very nicely. They're just trading off objectives of the map. Astralis notices they're moving away from the mid lane and the bot lane. They press their charges on towards the Drake themselves. Mad Lions notices that, and they move up towards the Rift Herald afterwards so they can get an objective as well. So it's just trade for trade between these two teams, and who would have thought 10 minutes into the game that Astralis and Mad Lions would actually be this close?
Only 700 gold between the two, and historically, it's been Mad Lions who have had the best early games in the league in spring in 2022. 2,500 gold ahead at the 14-minute mark compared to Astralis, who are last at 2.7k behind. More towers, more kills, less deaths. Mad Lions have been our best early game team so far.
So this is
Astralis have been our worst.
These two teams are literally polar opposites of each other in the early game.
Exactly, but Astralis here have been able to pick up some advantages in the early game. They are still a little bit behind, but it's looking like a much better start for them. And there are some signs of life coming out from this Astralis lineup.
And I completely agree. I think that composition here in the early game is also easier to play. The fact you can just play around engages of Rakan that is fairly hard to punish because you can always dash out. You have the simplicity of a Jarvan. It's super good for a team like Astralis that has been struggling to play together as a team, because quite often they look like they have different opinions on what they want to do. They look like they're not on the same page. Much like XL and SK earlier, it seems like the reason for a lot of our struggles in the bottom end of the tables right now is just not being on the same page.
Yeah, coordination is something that can take quite a long time to develop and to build up as a team, and it does mean when you get towards team fights, it can be a little bit tricky. You have to remember, like Mad Lions, 2 new players on this roster, 2 rookies on this roster in the form of Reeker and Unforgiven. And it's not like they're rookies coming into plug-and-play slots. They are rookies coming into very important roles in mid and bot lane. And it can be very difficult to fully find that coordination that we saw from the Mad Lions of 2021. But I will say, I still think it's been a very good start from Mad. You know, they only lost that game against SK because of a small mistake probably from Elyoya in the late game, mispositioning on the Razor Beaks. If they hadn't lost that, they'd be at 3-1, sitting near the top of the table.
That should have just been a win.
I mean, it should have been, right? But you do make these mistakes, and everyone does, and every player has been in that position. So I think overall, Mad Lions have looked promising, to say the least, in 2022.
And you can still see that catalyst here on Elyoya. He is level 8 right now, Zanzarah is only level 7. He does still have the Eye of the Rift Herald. Oh, he might be CC chained here, though.
Elyoya does have the flash, but there's the fear. Doom and gloom spells your doom as Elyoya falls to Zanzarah.
And they did not want to risk that one. Dajor still has the ultimate. Probably not going to connect on this one unless they're looking for a follow-up. But you're delaying the Rift Herald. You can see it's almost out of time, this Eye of the Rift Herald. Down towards the bottom lane. We're only 12 minutes into the game, which means no TPs could be utilized. Granted, they are all on cooldown, but Zanzarah, he is just here to hover. At least you'd think so.
Yeah, I think promisq is just trying to harass a little bit. It's going to be very difficult to dive a Zilean Jinx, especially since Unforgiven has both the summoners, as does Kaiser. I mean, you can go for this dive, but without Cataclysm, And with that Zilean ultimate available, it's going to be a very tricky one.
That's the thing, you have to connect everything on the Zilean. You have to one-shot him before he gets the Chrono Shift available, because if you don't, this is just going to be a botch dive. So let's see how they pull it off, Medic. First one's missed. No, never
Flash
mind.
and knock up. Oh, that was beautiful, but Kaiser still gets the Chrono Shift down. Kobbe has to pop the Feather Storm into the root. Almost timed well enough to kill off Kaiser. Zanzarah was catching the wave. Next wave still at the tier 1 tower for Astralis. Kobbe stepping round to the side. Not too much damage coming out of Unforgiven as of yet. TPs, none available. Reeker's about to come off cooldown, but Unforgiven is forgotten in the bottom lane, and Kaiser will be the first fall. promisq wants a stopwatch. Unforgiven goes down. Astralis orchestrated that gank like a conductor.
Exactly, but in the opposite side of the map, you can see they're trying to dive Ornn right now. Let's see how that goes for them.
Can be very tricky to do. TP comes out from Dajor as he wants to join this party. Riftherald gets a charge in. Forward plates go down, and Astralis able to survive in the top side.
And just like that, the worst team in our league in terms of early game gold is taking a lead against the best team here in the early game. Let's have a look at that dive again. I thought for sure that Kaiser was safe, and it's actually brilliant mind games from the side of Zanzarah, because had that CC chain been delivered a bit more cleanly, Kaiser would have never gotten that ultimate off, so you can definitely see the ideas there. Then, at this point, they're just trying to take care of the wave. They want to re-dive it at some point, which is, honestly speaking, it's very greedy because they don't have any intel of Elyoya right now. He could be waiting around. But the bot lane of MAD Lions, they're trying to hover through the minion waves. They just cannot get out of there. And so close that promisq goes down, but just barely gets the mark on the stopwatch and survives.
Commencing stopwatch came up just in time for promisq. And of course, credit to Kobbe as well. The Feather Storm into the root meant that Unforgiven burnt his flash, which then meant the re-engage is a lot easier because you just EQ combo onto someone. Unforgiven will be able to dodge away with the Gale Force through the wall. We've seen that happen a couple of times across the last couple of weeks. It is a known mechanic in Armut. He wants to keep the party rolling. Zanzarah locked up, no EQ for you. Armut TP's in and gets his first kill of the game.
There we have it. Gale Force really coming in clutch there. If they get the kill on Unforgiven, that may have been a different situation. WhiteKnight did have TP as well if he wanted to respond. See that TP from Armut. But now with this TP advantage, they may be looking for this themselves. promisq at least is.
Slowed up by the time warp. Definitely not a Rakan's friend is that Zilean E. Just gives you so little movement speed, and promisq continues to try and step forward, but this is more than done for. Astralis will give up the second dragon of the game. A chem tech to MAD Lions, a hex tech to Astralis, and there'll be no tech for the rest of the game as it's an Infernal Rift that will come onto the Rift.
And as the Infernal blazes, we can talk about how crucial this Drake actually will be for both compositions here. You got good poke from the side of the Viktor, the damage as well on Unforgiven on the Jinx will be absolutely crucial. But also at the same time, Kobbe has opted for Lethality Xayah, so remember his Q will do a ton of damage if they can get it down. Elyoya hovering down towards the bot side. Reeker is around as well. You can see it on the minimap. He's made his move. But the Astralis bot lane, they pay their respect. They back off. While Armut on the top side, he's able to get a top side turret. So MAD Lions right now, despite being a little bit down in the bottom, is still picking up their wins on the opposite side of the map.
Yeah, got about 1,000 gold lead across the board. 16 minutes in, they're not in the worst of shape, but Astralis have had a relatively strong performance so far. Lots of gold being funneled into Kobbe, as you say. The lone Dane, I believe, on this Astralis lineup.
Unfortunately.
I mean, you say unfortunately, but you know,
well, it could always be worse. There could always be a Brit.
Wow. It's true. It's true, and you can see there from the gold exactly where the separation is between these two teams. Armut, 7,000 gold, 1.5k ahead. Kobbe, 6.4k, 700 ahead of Unforgiven. Those are the two key carries for these teams, and if they are able to survive through these fights, they're where we have to keep our eyes. Elyoya able to get the second Rift Herald of the game, that will be secured.
Yeah, and just for the record, you should probably never expect Astralis to pick up a Rift Herald. So far in the season, they've only managed to pick up one. So their strongest...
That was yesterday, wasn't it?
That was yesterday, exactly. The second Rift Herald in their game yesterday was the first one they picked up of the season. So they just don't have the highest prior on that, or you can say that maybe their rotations are not always there.
And they definitely like playing down towards this bottom side, trying to get Kobbe ahead. And if you are doing that, you often give up a lot of that vision control into the top side river. Game pretty even, though, between these two. I think a few people may have expected with MAD Lions being the best early game team in the league, or at least statistically so, and Astralis being the worst statistically. that this would have been a little bit more one-sided to kick us off, but now MAD Lions grouping up as 5 in the mid lane, giving us a little bit of an EUA ramp.
Look at Dajor, though. He's coming up from the bot side. He might be able to catch someone off guard. There's pink wards around the area. But this Infernal Rift not helping his situation. Makes it so there's no fog of war in between these walls because obviously they've been torn apart.
And it can become very tricky for both these teams actually to find a full-on engage, you know, because you do have, of course, Call of the Forge God. Zanzarah here diving with the Cataclysm under the tower. Reeker does have to invest his flash to get away, but the wave state wasn't in the best of position for Astralis to follow up.
No, but this is great because Infernal Drake, we've already talked about it, 2 minutes for this one to respawn. No summoner spells was burned on the side for Astralis, so Reeker, he's now a weak point in the next team fight if he can get a flank going for you. So this is actually something that I'm going to credit Astralis for. They've been very good at finding picks, but on the other side, MAD, they've been good at utilizing their pressure elsewhere on the map. And what can they get done right now? You can take a look at the top side. Armut pushing in down towards the bot side. Elyoya once again with Rift Hell can open up this turret with the push-up coming in from Reeker. And resets, they're just coming through from Astralis right now. So there's just no response. It's just MAD Lions pulling the trigger and Astralis just accepting the forfeit.
I'm going to put some gold into Reeker's pockets as well. With the Rift Herald coming down, should be able to get another charge out here. MAD Lions now about 1,000 gold ahead once again. Unforgiven going to level up as Kaiser gives him a little helping hand worth of XP. Rift Herald will get a second charge in, and MAD actually might keep pushing for this one. Of course, Unforgiven very strong on this Jinx at taking down towers. Everfrost only gets the slow. There's the fear from Dajor, but 2 towers for none in favor of MAD Lions on that trade. promisq. This is a long flank if you're going to go for this one. You can see Kobbe coming around the side as well. promisq maybe hoping to catch someone on a bad back timer.
Kobbe spotted on Vision moving down in river. TP coming through here. Armut does have TP himself if he wants to join the fight.
MAD Lions have a long way to go home. Armut, as you say, has the TP. promisq kept out with the Gravity Well. Call of the Forge God coming down as WhiteKnight looks for the back line, and Reeker assassinated, but the Chrono Shift will bring him back to life. Kobbe trying to survive up towards the top side, and there's an absolute cluster of damage in the bottom. 1-for-1 trade so far. Kobbe able to escape from Armut, who now jumps back into the fight. Elyoya keeping himself alive. The Brittle not enough damage. WhiteKnight locked up, stunned up, locked down. And Elyoya does not die. Armut keeps Kobbe and promisq at arm's length. He'll chase them down with the chains. They're infernal, just like the rift on which they stand. Slammed to the ground is Kobbe as Armut takes a double.
And those two were solo kills for Armut, collecting that to his arsenal. He took down the bot lane by himself. And that team fight, Kaiser, what a crucial ultimate. Not only does it gain them all the kills, the A's, it also gets them the Infernal Drake. And let's have a look at the replay once again. Why is the Zilean ultimate so crucial at this point? Well, Medic, it is because it stopped the resets of the Vex ultimate. Because he doesn't die, Dajor doesn't get to use it again.
He speeds himself up to get in range to do it as well. That's actually so well played by Kaiser.
And because of this, they lose a lot of value on the mid laner here, on Dajor. He doesn't get to reset, go on multiple members. You see how low these HP bars are? If that was a kill for the Vex, this fight could have been entirely different. But Kaiser holds the ultimate for the perfect time. And then Armut, I mean, he's the guy with the most solo kills in the league so far, and he's just adding to that with plays like this where you're able to take a team fight and still, statistically speaking, calling them solo kills.
Yeah, you can look at that though. 3.5k from both Armut and from Unforgiven. Unforgiven, 24 extra damage in that fight, so obviously he's the key carry for the MAD Lions on this Jinx, and the gold lead has snowballed for MAD now. 4,000 gold ahead from basically nothing. I was wondering for a while how MAD Lions would be able to play out teamfights because they don't have a huge amount of engage. You look at it like Lee Sin maybe finding a kick, Armut running at you, but what they're doing so well is like, okay, come at us, and assuming we can survive that initial engage you were talking about, then we can fight back through you.
Another thing I was undervaluing as well was the speed up that Zilean gives to his teammates here. The Jinx having the movement to dodge out on all the abilities and skill shots coming through from the side of Astralis. Because with the movement speed, you can dodge out on the Call of the Forge God. You can dodge out on an engage for promisq, especially if he doesn't have flash. And it also just helps you team fight Viktor with the Aatrox jumping into the enemy face.
And the thing with it is like you max that first on support Zilean, it gives your teammate a 99% movement speed modifier.
That's not broken.
That's a lot. And if you have Time Warp, basically, it's a 15-second cooldown for the E, and then you rewind. So you go E, 15-second cooldown, rewind, take 10 seconds off it, 5 seconds later you can use it again. is so strong in this sort of situation when played well, when you're reliant on your teammates to carry. You can just be speeding up, slowing your opponents down. It's so powerful. And MAD Lions are utilizing it to full effect. Elyoya and Reeker hovering at each other. Zanzarah looking for the engage here, but underneath the tower is not going to be too easy. Cataclysm coming down. Reeker pops the stopwatch. promisq trying to keep Kaiser away from the fight, but Kaiser doesn't even need to join the fight as Reeker just takes his man down. Zanzarah falls. MAD Lions find another.
The thing is, Astralis thought they could go for that because they have pink, or they have really reliable vision in the enemy jungle. But the thing was, Elyoya came from the lane, and because of that, they didn't spot him. Now TP is coming through as well. WhiteKnight, will he get this recall off? The answer is no, and here comes Reeker.
How do you get away from this one? Well, you can charge once. Dajor can just walk away. MAD Lions will gain topside control with this, though, and I wonder if that TP might signal them trying to set up around this Baron. Armut.
Level 15!
Mate, like, he's an ornithologist, because all he's doing is bird watching as promisq and Kobbe have to walk away from him.
And you can also call him an ornithologist when he's just looking at Ornn.
Yes! The dad jokes are taking over the LEC. That was a good one, Guldborg.
You're welcome.
Probably your funniest moment ever.
I'm not a very funny guy, so...
Well, I think you're quite funny. I think you're amusing.
That's a good way for it, yeah.
You have a dry sense of humor that doesn't translate well on cast.
No, that's probably true, unfortunately.
And you don't like pendulum, so I'm not sure if we can be friends.
I like the pendulum wave states we get in League.
That's very true. It's, MAD Lions utilizing the pendulum, pushing forward in this bottom lane for Armut to continue to pressure down WhiteKnight. Zanzarah just trying to see if he can find anything here, but even his own jungle isn't really safe for him. Look at the vision control that MAD have up towards that red side. But importantly, look at where Astralis have some wards. They are behind MAD Lions. So if MAD start this up, WhiteKnight does have a good TP position. Dajor doesn't have a TP of his own. Armut's going to back away and has got the Unleashed teleport. Does WhiteKnight want to retreat from this wave so he can TP in?
This is the thing, they don't have the best turn potential right now, but the TP, you called it, Medic, it's coming through, and Zanzarah, he's diving in. Where's the follow-up?
promisq had flash quickness, doesn't connect though. They're still looking for Unforgiven, who gets the chrono shift. He'll come back. Unforgiven, not forgotten. He's going to res from the grave, but Kobbe's already killed off Kaiser. promisq's going to get the knock-up, and Kobbe gets the second of the fight. Armut joins it so late, it's basically going to be a 1v5 for him. Can he get out of this one alive? He dives onto Kobbe. He's rooted. He's knocked up. He's locked up in place. Armut now on the retreat. Will Astralis allow him to escape? Feathers fly. Shut down for Kobbe. He'll fall for it. But Astralis get the wipe in the team fight.
And just like that, Astralis has flipped this game on its head against the defending champions of the LEC. Last place team coming in clutch here, and what a play. Death timers are still fairly low. Yeah, they should be able to pick this one up. The only thing I'm worried about is the rocket from Unforgiven. These HP bars are low. He's spawning, and there, yep, there he comes, picture in picture. Oh, hey.
Oh, it was almost an arcane moment, but that was not going on Netflix. Baron secured by Astralis, and Zara lands the smite. Gold within 600, and what a fight Astralis have put up in this game.
Just like that, they're back at it. I'd love to take a look at that recall again, but it was, as you called, the TP from WhiteKnight. The potential to be the proactive team, starting the team fight, not waiting for Armut to be able to join the fight. It was this extra tempo that made sure you were able to clean up the mobs before you could go for the raid boss afterwards.
That's the thing. It's a lot easier for Astralis if Armut is not there. Even though the quickness doesn't connect, they get the flashes out, and then WhiteKnight can pick his target.
And it's just like this, they get the ultimate already, they burn down Unforgiven. Yes, he's not, he's going to be respawning, but that's completely fine because they're split. So like, yeah, guys, we took care of the mods. Now raid boss is coming in, turn on boss, who's going to taunt, who's going to taunt? All right, tank coming around the corner. WhiteKnight trying to get the CC locked up, but Armut's flashing it, but after that, there's just too much CC in the Astralis roster. They're able to slowly but surely pick it down. Kobbe flashes forward with a Featherstorm and just finishes the ace.
I mean, the big thing there is, although Kobbe invested a lot, you know, Featherstorm and the flash to get that kill, he got the shutdown. So this Xayah is only becoming stronger as the game goes on. You can see already did 5.5k in that last fight alone. Reeker did what he could, but wasn't quite strong enough to carry MAD Lions through it. Now Astralis take 2 towers in the mid lane, have a 300 gold lead for the first time in what feels like a long time. They will move up towards this top side of the map. Armut's trying to stand and hold this minion wave, but he's going to get locked up with the Doom and Gloom. That Fear connects, double bomb coming out, though WhiteKnight and
Look at the
Zanzarah
healing!
So tanky, Armut healing up. What are we gonna see? Featherstorm, Call of the Forge God, Cataclysm, the lockup is there, the quickness coming out as well. Kaiser down, and Dajor flies in from downtown. The Shadow Surge found one mark, didn't get the reset though. Mad Lions still a player down in this fight. Zanzarah looking for the flank. Astralis, perhaps with this Baron, will just take the tier 2 and retreat. 4,000 gold, the power play they have gained off of the big purple worm.
Exactly, they sacrifice their tank, but they get the support and the mage of the side of Mad Lions, and they get the 600 gold for picking up the tier 2 turret. And this game, out of nowhere, has become incredibly tense. Elyoya, is your presence of mind good enough to know this? No, he throws out the cube, but into the wrong fuck of war. And ornaments have started to come through as well, Medic. This late game is starting to become really scary now.
It really is, and you can see this fight, I thought, wasn't actually going to be the best for Astralis. Armut heals up a ton at the start, and the Cataclysm, Call of the Forge God combination is so far away from Astralis' damage dealers.
The fact that Zanzarah literally just decides to send it at this moment, knowing, yeah, we have the Call of the Forge God, let's just layer that CZ on top. Knock up on knock up into the Fear. This is the ease of execution we talk about in Astralis composition.
Now, Reeker a little bit caught out, but Elyoya's here as well. Zanzarah
No
stunned
flash.
up, Shadow Surge. Oh, it was just short of Reeker. Now the TP's coming in, and perhaps Astralis have over-invested into this fight. Mistral Bolt does get the resurrection out, but Armut has a good flank position. Infernal Chains on Zanzarah doesn't quite connect, but Dajor will be the first one to be shut down. Zanzarah trying to flag and drag his way to safety, but there is no safety in the Mad Lions jungle. Mad pick up 2, they're looking for 3 as WhiteKnight. He calls to some sort of god, but whatever prayers you're praying, he ain't listening. It's a double for Unforgiven. Kobbe has to pop the feathers and fly his way out of this one, but Unforgiven with the resets. Look at this time warp cooldown. It's already back up. Unforgiven can go back in. promisq, a good battle dance.
Tank it!
Mega Infernal Bomb was tanked by Kobbe to keep his support alive.
And that is just Astralis being too overzealous. Kobbe was not around the area to fight, just outside of the Shadow Surge. You mentioned it yourself. And then good presence of mind of Mad Lions. They have their members gathered around the bot lane immediately to take care of it. Elyoya, you are hovering for this one. You are not connecting, though. But once again, it's stellar team fighting from Mad Lions that's keeping them in this game.
It's what they were so good at in 2021. Their team fighting was the best in the league. And I think this is an over-investment from Astralis.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. TP is up and available as well. They think they can answer it with their own, but the rotations, it's already coming through from Unforgiven. He decided to just sack the wave in the mid lane, and that was obviously the right decision here. So Astralis, has they just been a bit more patient? They could have tried and siege down the mid lane, but they saw red, they got too greedy for the fight, and Mad Lions, immediately they capitalized on that.
It's the pendulum swinging back in favor of Mad Lions. A good fight from them. Now gold, basically even. We haven't seen a dragon in a little while, but there is an Infernal Soul available for Mad if they can secure this. Astralis, though, do have a very strong team fighting composition. They do have those ornaments. They do have Kobbe at 4 items. They do have Dajor at 3.5 items. And they do have a fight starting.
Kaiser
the target. Shadow Surge going out. Kaiser will bring himself back to life with the Chrono Shift, and that means the reset isn't there. Dajor locked up, pops the stopwatch. WhiteKnight going in. promisq and Kobbe are still alive here. The charm onto Elyoya means that he can't dive onto the backline. He's still going to manage to get kick. Dragon's Rage. Reeker ripped through by Kobbe. It's all on the AD carry, but he just can't do it. Zanzarah falls last. Mad Lions stand fast in the mid lane.
Once again, the team fighting gods of our league has stepped into the rift, and you can see it reset after reset. Astralis, they thought they had it. They took care of the Chronomancer, but that did not matter. As the movement speed from Armut to reset, from Unforgiven to reset, there's too much to deal with, and look at that damage, Medic!
Unforgiven is having such a start to this season. We tried to talk about him a little bit earlier, and we were interrupted by the action, but this guy is so consistent. His positioning in fights seems almost perfect at times, and here, on his back, Mad Lions take the win.
But who would have thought that this game would have been this close? Mad Lions obviously not happy about that performance, but in the end they still display their talent. And they take down Astralis, and Astralis not happy faces. You're left with the feeling that they should have had that one for once.
We've all been there, you know, when you lose a game that you feel like you've got back into can be even more devastating than just getting stomped. And Astralis, there were so many good signs in that game. The early game, a lot closer than we expected. The mid game, some very strong fights from them, some very good picks. They just couldn't quite close it out in the end. But Grace in defeat for Astralis. MAD Lions pick up the win, and you can vote for one of them in your Kia player of the game at LEC on Twitter. Armut, Elyoya, and Unforgiven are your options. And the MAD Lions, a rookie AD carry, Unforgiven, has had such a great start to the season so far. I really think that he should be right up there in terms of who you are looking at for your player of the game.
And not only that, but I hear he's also standing by Laure right now, ready for an interview. So, Laure, take it away.
Thank you, Guldborg. And Unforgiven, thank you so much for joining me for your very first LEC interview. Congrats on taking down Astralis. But the casters were mentioning how close the game was. So your take on the game, and did you expect it to be that close against Astralis?
Well, I didn't expect it to be that close. I think we were playing like really bad as a team today. And I think we were like messing up a lot in bot lane. I'm not very proud over how I played today.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but you managed to get the win in the end, so positive sentiment here. I want to review a specific fight for you, with you, if you don't mind. The 25-minute Dajor fight. So you're in position. There's a TP coming from behind. Tell me what happened and how did you succeed in this fight?
Well, they engaged on me, and we didn't have any like vision on Ornn when he teleported. And I just ran back, and I just realized there was Ornn behind me, and at that point, I think the fight is kind of doomed.
Yeah, and it looked hard from that, but you managed to get the win in the end. A beautiful mid lane team fight, and coming back after this unfortunate play on the Baron. But last question for you, Unforgiven. Positive sentiment here. You were recruited by the double-time LEC winners from last year. What does it mean to you to play with the MAD Lions, and how have things been so far with the team, outside of this game, let's say?
Well, things in MAD Lions have been really good, and I'm quite surprised to be here, but I'm really happy to play with like the entire team, and really happy to play with Kaiser in bot lane.
Yeah, Kaiser mentioned how good it was to play with you, so hopefully things keep on getting better for the MAD Lions. Congrats on taking down Astralis today, Unforgiven, and we'll see how things go for you next week in week 3, and we're going to take a break now, and we'll be back in a couple minutes with Vedius versus Rogue. Stay tuned.